She had been gone for 37 days when he announced his engagement. Not 30 days, 37. Dana had counted, not obsessively, not from a place of hope, but because she was the kind of person who noted details, and the detail felt important in a way she couldn't yet name. She had seen the announcement on a Thursday morning, on her phone, before her first coffee, in the serviced apartment in Singapore she had moved to because she had needed to be on the other side of the world, and Singapore had the project, and the project was something she could actually hold. Thrilled to announce my engagement to Petra Cole. She makes me a better man. She had put the phone down on the hotel nightstand. She had made the coffee. She had taken a shower. She had gone to work. She had not cried. She had been married to Owen Hale for 6 years, and she knew, with the specific knowledge of a woman who had watched something end long before it officially did, that the 37 days were not the cause of anything. They were the conclusion of it. What had ended their marriage was not a single event. It was an accumulation of a man who believed that his success was his alone, that the years she had spent building the contacts and maintaining the relationships and reading the rooms he walked into with the intelligence reports she prepared and called research were simply what a supportive wife did, not what a strategic partner contributed. He had once said, at a dinner she had organized, to a client she had identified and cultivated, about a deal she had structured the introduction for, "I've always had good instincts." She had smiled at the client. She had refilled her wine glass. She had understood, in that moment, exactly what the next chapter needed to look like. If you have ever been erased from the story of something you helped build, stay with us, because what Donna Hale does in 3 years, and what she walks back into that room carrying, will take your breath away. Subscribe right now. You need to see this all the way to the end. Donna Chen had come to the marriage with an EMBA, 8 years of venture capital experience, and the specific skill of identifying undervalued assets before the market caught up to them. A skill she had applied to companies, to deals, and, she understood in retrospect, to a man who had needed someone to see his potential before it was legible to anyone else. She had seen Owen Hale at 32, when Hale Group was a mid-sized commercial real estate firm with good bones and poor positioning. She had married him at 34. She had spent 6 years helping him become the man the announcement described. She had left at 40. She left quietly. No public statement. No social announcement. No version of events delivered to the people in their shared orbit. She had instructed her lawyer to proceed with the divorce without drama, accepted what was contractually hers, which was less than what was actually hers. But she was not interested in the fight. She was interested in the distance, and taken the Singapore posting her firm had been offering her for 2 years. She had said no. Twice. She had said yes at 40, on a Thursday, and been on a plane by Saturday, and she had not looked at anything from Chicago for the first 3 weeks. Singapore gave her what she needed, a project complex enough to require everything she had. A city that owed her nothing, and the specific freedom of anonymity, of being, for the first time in 6 years, simply Dana Chen, rather than Dana Hale, Owen's wife, Owen's most reliable asset, the woman who made the room work before Owen entered it. She remade the list. She had always kept lists, running assessments of where she was and what came next. The habit of a woman who trusted clarity over comfort. This list had 1 column, what I actually know how to do when no one's name is attached to it. The list was longer than she expected, longer than 6 years of being Owen's infrastructure had allowed her to see. She spent 3 years in Singapore. The project she led delivered 14 months early and was the subject of a case study at 2 business schools. The relationship she built became the architecture of something she had not planned but recognized when it arrived. A private investment vehicle, seated by 3 Singapore-based family offices, who had watched her work and decided they wanted her judgment applied to their capital. Capital. She incorporated it in the 3rd year with a structure she had designed herself, a mandate she had written herself, and a thesis she had been assembling, piece by piece, since the dinner at which Owen had said, "I've always had good instincts." The thesis was this: the companies other people were sleeping on were usually the ones with the best operational fundamentals and the worst external narrative. The story was wrong, not the asset. Fix the story. Or better, position yourself before anyone else noticed the gap between story and reality. And the returns were there. She was very good at noticing the gap between story and reality. She had spent 6 years living inside one. She flew back to Chicago on a Tuesday in November, 3 years and 2 months after the Singapore plane, to attend a board meeting for a portfolio company. She had 3 other meetings scheduled across 2 days. One of them was with the Hale Group's current CFO, who had reached out through a mutual contact about a capital raise they were running. She had known, when she agreed to the meeting, that Owen would likely be there. She had agreed anyway. She was ready in a way she needed to test from the inside, and the only test that counted was the real one. The Hale Group offices were different, repositioned. The lobby had been redesigned, the branding updated, the kind of refresh that signals either confidence or anxiety depending on what's underneath it. She read it as anxiety on the way up in the elevator and had confirmed the diagnosis by the time she reached the conference room. Owen was there. He was at the head of the table, which was where he always was, and he looked precisely like himself, well-dressed, well-maintained, carrying the assured posture of a man who has not been given sufficient reason to doubt himself. He looked up when she walked in. Whatever he had expected from this meeting, it was not her. She watched his face move through 3 things in about 2 seconds: recognition, recalibration, and then the performance of a man recovering his composure in a room where the power dynamics had just shifted without announcement. "Dana," he said. "I didn't know you were. The CFO arranged the meeting," she said pleasantly. "It's good to see you, Owen." She sat down. She opened her folder. She was entirely calm in the specific way of a woman who has spent 3 years becoming the person in this room with the most information. The CFO presented. She listened. She asked 11 questions, specific, sequential, the kind that revealed she had already read everything they hadn't given her, and had formed conclusions they had not anticipated. She watched Owen watch her ask them. She watched him understand, question by question, what 3 years had produced. At the end of the presentation, she said, "The fundamentals are stronger than the raise implies. You're undervaluing the asset. I'd suggest a different structure." She outlined it in 4 minutes. The CFO wrote everything down. Owen said nothing. After the room cleared, he remained. She had expected this. "You look well," he said. "I am well," she said. "The business is well. The raise will be well if you take the restructured terms. Dana, Owen." She said his name the way you say a name when you need the performance to stop. "Whatever you're about to say, I want you to know that I don't need it. I didn't come back here for a conversation about us. I came back for a board meeting and a capital raise and a dinner with a friend tonight." She closed her folder. "The terms I outlined are fair. Better than fair. You should take them." He looked at her for a long moment. Something in his face had shifted, not the recovery composure face, something underneath it. She had seen that face before. She had once loved that face, specifically, before she had understood that the man wearing it did not know how to love her back in kind. You built deck yourself, he said. Without yes, she said. The Singapore project. The family offices. That was all yes, he was quiet. I said something at dinner once. About instincts. She looked at him. I remember. I've thought about it a lot, he said. I know what it cost. It cost 6 years and a marriage, she said without heat. And it produced 3 years and a fund. I think the math worked out. He looked at his hands. She recognized this too. The posture of Owen Hale arriving at accountability, something he did rarely and slowly and with difficulty, which was perhaps the most honest thing about him. I'm sorry, he said. She considered him across the conference table. 3 years and 2 months. Singapore in the list and Decapital, and 14 months ahead of schedule, and 2 business school case studies. She had not built any of it to get to this room or this sentence. But she was in both, and the sentence was real, and she was going to receive it as what it was. I know, she said. Thank you for saying it. She did not offer more than that. She did not need to give him absolution, and she did not need to give him pain. She had not driven to this office for either of those things. She needed nothing from him. That was the entire point, arrived at over 3 years, and it held. She stood. She offered her hand. He shook it. She took the elevator down. She walked out of the Hale Group offices into a November afternoon in Chicago and stood on the pavement for a moment. The cold coming off the lake. The city exactly where she had left it. She had thought, coming in, that she might feel something, residue, weight. The shape of the 6 years pressing against the inside of something. She felt nothing except the cold and the very specific satisfaction of a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she built and what it is worth. Her phone rang. She answered. It was Claudia, her CFO, calling from Singapore about a term sheet on a new position. She stood on the pavement outside the Hale Group offices and talked through the structure for 20 minutes and made 2 decisions, and authorized 1 move, and ended the call. She walked to the restaurant where she was meeting her friend. The friend was Yemi, a woman she had known since business school, who had watched the 6 years from the outside with the careful love of a person who does not say I told you so, and also does not need to. They ate for 2 hours and talked about the fund and Yemi's own work, and a man Yemi thought Donna should meet, a partner at a firm in the city, newly based in Chicago after years in London. The kind of person Yemi described as your type, which is to say brilliant and slightly exasperating. Donna said she would think about it. Yemi said, "You always say you'll think about it." "And then I always think about it," Donna said. "And then I usually decide." "This time decide yes," Yemi said. "You have been building things for 3 years. You are allowed to also want things." Dana looked at her across the table. "I want things," she said. "Name one." She thought about it. "I want to take the terms I proposed to Hale Group and close the raise and have the portfolio performing by Q2. I want the London expansion to move in the spring. I want to sleep in a time zone that matches my actual life." She paused. "And I want to meet your slightly exasperating brilliant person, if he's real." "He is very real," Yemi said. "His name is Marcus. He just closed a restructuring deal that 3 other firms said couldn't be done." Dana raised her eyebrows. "Which deal?" Yemi told her. Dana was quiet for a moment. "I read about that deal," she said. "I thought the structuring was innovative." "You would be very pleased to know that," Yemi said. "He's coming to dinner on Saturday. Be there." She was there. Marcus Osai was, as advertised, brilliant and slightly exasperating. He disagreed with her about a market thesis before they had finished the starter. Was completely right about one part of the disagreement and completely wrong about the other. and accepted this assessment with the equanimity of a man who is interested in being correct rather than being seen to be correct. She found that unusual and did not pretend otherwise. He asked about Deck Capital with the questions of someone who had actually read the thesis, specifically, not generally. She asked about the restructuring deal. They argued about regulatory frameworks across 2 courses and agreed about everything that actually mattered by dessert. He asked if she would meet him for coffee. She said yes without thinking about it for 4 days, which was itself information. She stayed in Chicago for 2 weeks. The raise closed on the restructured terms she had proposed. The portfolio company board meeting produced 3 decisions she was satisfied with. And Marcus Osei had coffee with her on a Wednesday, and then dinner on a Friday, and then walked with her along the lake on a Sunday afternoon, while the November cold came off the water and she told him about Singapore and the list and capital. And he listened the way she had. Always. Needed someone to listen. Like the story was interesting because she was interesting, not because it reflected something about him. She told him about Owen without naming him. He didn't ask for the name. "What did you learn?" he said. "From it." She thought about it. That I had been treating my own value as a contribution to someone else's story, she said, and that the correction for that is not bitterness. It's authorship. Write your own story. Make it the one worth reading. He looked at her. Deck Capital is a very good story, he said. It's a start, she said. He smiled. She had been watching him smile across 4 days of coffee and dinner and a board meeting sidebar he had heard about through Yemi and asked her about with the directness she had already come to expect, and each time it was the same. Unperformative, specific to the moment, not managed. She was going to stay in Chicago for 1 more week. Then she extended it to 2. Then it became, without formal announcement, a different arrangement. Deck Capital operated from wherever she was, which had always been the design, and Chicago had Marcus and Yemi, and a city she had left and now, on different terms, could return to. She and Marcus were married 3 years later in a small ceremony in the city. Yemi made a toast that was primarily about being right, which she was entitled to, and which made the room laugh. Donna wore something she had chosen herself, in the time zone of her actual life, in a room full of people who knew the real story. Owen Hale was not in the room. He had no role in this chapter. The raise had closed, the portfolio had performed, the restructured terms had delivered returns that the Hale Group CFO had called her personally to acknowledge. Owen had sent a brief professional note when the Q2 numbers were released. She had noted it and moved on. That was the appropriate size of him now. A note. A line item. A deal that had closed cleanly. Her chapter was different. Her chapter had Marcus and Deck Capital entering its 4th year with a London office and a Seoul office and a mandate she had written herself, and Yemi at the wedding making the room laugh, and the specific satisfaction of a woman who had been erased from one story and had written a better one. Some replacements are the best thing that ever happens to you. Some 37-day countdowns are actually countdowns to something entirely different from what you think, not to loss, but to the beginning of the version that was always yours to write. She had written it. Every word. If this story reached you, share it with someone who needed permission to write their own. And subscribe, because every week we are here, and we are just getting started.